This is about deficit financing from the Central Bank of Nigeria to the federal government. Essentially, it's about what is called seniorage in terms of the central bank being able to fund the running of government through a process that may mean the creation of new money. Money not essentially backed by value. You know the difference between when you sell crude oil, somebody is receiving value and paying you for it. But most of the times, ways and means may involve just the creation of money, simply giving instructions to the mint to get more money, which may not be backed by any value. And that's why it is such a process that is quite unpopular, and that's why it is regulated by law. Otherwise, if the CBN were at liberty to keep printing money not backed by value and distributing around, you end up making your currency worthless. The National Assembly has always approved budgets containing deficits, and there has always been sources of funding the deficit stated in the budget. So if ways and means had not been stated and then the executive resorted to it, somehow is an affront against the constitution, because they're supposed to declare it in the budget when they're going to do so. But I know as a fact that in some years the federal government had indicated they were going to fund the budget through ways and means. So it is something between the executive and the legislature they can agree on as a source of funding. And there's a recognition that ways and means can be used to fund the budget. That's why in the CBN Act you have a specific provision for it. The CBN governor and the executive, the presidency, the Ministry of Finance, they're all conspirators in violating the law. Indeed, the CBN has a restriction. It cannot give more than 5% of previous year's actual revenue. So if the federal government earned 100 billion, CBN is limited to give them in the following year not more than 5 billion. So by even giving them more than the law states, they are in violation of the law. And then the law is clear. Ways and means is supposed to be a short advance you can use to tidy up. Assuming you're expecting a loan to be drawn down to fund the budget, you've already finished negotiating it, signed the signatures, but there's a delay in the disbursement, you can resort to ways and means. And when the money comes, the expectation is that you put it back, short-term advance that should be put back within the financial year in which it was advanced. It wasn't expected to accumulate, to become a consistent feature, now to accumulate 1 trillion up to 20-something trillion. So that is the law. And the same act says that once the money is not paid back within the financial year, that the CBN has lost the right or the opportunity to disburse any further advance until the outstanding one is paid. So first of all, the federal government was collecting beyond the 5% as stated by law, and they were not paying back within the financial year and allowed it to accumulate to such a humongous level that nobody is sure where we are going with that kind of ways and means. So the CBN is implicated. The Minister of Finance or Minister of Finance is implicated. The President is implicated. The Attorney General, who knows the law and who should advise, is also implicated. So a whole lot of people, and even the National Assembly that should exercise oversight over the management of public resources. Why did they go to sleep? They were silent on it over the years, and they knew it was happening, because in the 2022 budget, 2021 budget, there were provisions for repayment to CBN. They have started paying little by little. So if you make provisions for repayment of a debt, even if you claim you did not know at the beginning when the debt was incurred, there's no way you can claim you do not know. So what were you providing for repayment for? So in essence, the National Assembly is also implicated, because they failed to exercise oversight. They failed to do their duty to call the executive to order at the time they were accumulating these debts. Whether you call it an advance or a debt, it's a debt like any other debt, and it has to be repaid. The Central Bank of Nigeria was given autonomy and independence by its enabling law of 2007. And it was deliberately made to keep partisanship and politics away from the enactment and implementation of monetary policy. So, by going to buy a form or by becoming partisan, because before you can contest for primaries, presidential primaries, you must have been a card-carrying registered member of the party, and probably for up to a year or two. So for a CPN governor to have been a card-carrying member of a political party was where he lost it. He should have resigned at that point, honorably, to say, I want to go into partisan politics before declaring his intention. Otherwise, if he didn't resign, his appointers could have forced him to resign or fired him. So in essence, he has no moral right to continue being in office because he has desecrated the sanctity of the office. The office was shielded by law in accordance with international norms sanctioned by the IMF, the World Bank, and the international community, that CBN should be allowed to run monetary policy independently. But what he had done is that he threw away that protection from partisan politics and threw it down. And so, if he's forced to resign today on account of that, I'm not even talking of the other allegations that were made by the DSS, on account of that alone, he should have either resigned or be forced to resign.